Today I'm going to go over planning for Units 0 and 1. So by now hopefully you've paced out your entire year using our pacing and planning folder, which is our folder number 2. And hopefully you have a big plan of your scope and sequence. This is mine for this upcoming school year. So I've planned out all of my units, when I want to do those exam days, the things that I'm going to cover, the labs I'm going to do. And so I start with a Unit 0, which is brief, 7 days. And then I go to Unit 1, 15 days. But I'm going to show you what I do for Units 0 and 1 and some of the options that you can use as well. So I'm going to go back to my folder and I'm going to go to my APES resources for participants and go ahead and you can click on number 1, the CED resources, and we're going to start with Unit 0. Unit 0 can be a variety of things. It's not in the CED, that's why we call it Unit 0. And people do a lot of different types of things for the first chapter in their book, the first module in their book, and it's just an introductory type of time. Some people start with the Tragedy of the Commons lab. I like to save that to Unit 5. It's in Unit 5 in the CED. I like to keep it there, but a lot of people like to do it first, and I have in the past done it the first week of school. I've switched to Light in the Deep Sea lab, which I do kind of like on day 3 or 4, and it goes with Unit 1 so that we cover it a little bit early, and they like it, they think it's fun, they remember the lab even at the end of the year. So the first item here, the spreadsheet, just has a variety of options of things that you can do. I also do a math diagnostic. Some people show the Lorax the first week of school, the old one. I like to show it in Unit 5, which is when we study deforestation. I do a footprint calculator early. That is also a Unit 5 topic, but I do it the first few days. Tragedy of the Commons is also Unit 5. I wait until Unit 5 for that one, but a lot of people do it early. If I have a day that I need to fill and classes and kids are switching around, which they don't do too much in my school, but I know for a lot of your schools, the kids do a lot of schedule changes. So you might want to fill in with things like scientist role models to show different types of scientists that study different things that look different and are different ethnicities and genders. Also, think like a scientist, asking scientific questions. So these are all things that you can do as a Unit 0. All right, so I'm going back to my Unit 0, and I have some ed puzzles if you want them. There's a pacing sample here, and I'm going to show you my current one, which is here for this upcoming school year. So my students start on August 9th, which is very early. And so we are blocked, but not every day. So the first day of school is all periods 50 minutes, and then our Wednesdays are usually going to be 42 minutes. So we have a modified block, and then we have our blocks like this. So what I do with Jamboard is I make a background template, and then I just put these sticky notes here and I can switch things around. So as I'm planning and figuring out what to do, I'm constantly moving things. Then I have these check marks, and the check marks are for me to know when I've actually sent stuff to be copied, because I don't remember all the time if I've sent it. We have a copy center, and so we send off the documents to the copy center and they ship us our copies. And sometimes I don't remember if I've done that or if I've programmed an assignment online for them to do, like on Edpuzzle. So I have check marks to remind me if I've already done that task, so I don't accidentally make double copies or things like that. So already, I've already copied a few items. I have some check marks here. I copied those before the end of the school year. Okay, so I start here with just my basics. I go over my syllabus briefly. It's super boring, so I don't like to spend a long time on my syllabus with kids. Now, this is the syllabus for parents to sign, not the AP syllabus for your audit. We get in Google Classroom, yada, yada, getting to know you. I don't do much with lab safety. They do a little tour that I have to do or a scavenger hunt for like, where is the goggles cabinet? Get a stamp, that kind of thing. But very brief with AP. They've done lab safety so many times before they get to me that I don't need to spend a lot of time on lab safety. So here on the second day of school is when I do the human footprint. I'll make this a little bigger. And there's a website. You have the copy in the folder of this. It's a website. They go and they calculate their footprint, their ecological footprint, and then analyze the results. So again, that's a Unit 5 topic, but I like to do it on the second day of school. For my students, the introductory chapter is Unit 1. There's not a lot in it they need to know, so I'm just going to have them start reading right away in their books. So I use the Withgott book, and it's section 1.1, which is chapter 1, section 1, and chapter 1, section 2. And then the next night is just more reading. And then I have to do a lab safety quiz. And so now we're on block schedule. So these are 100-minute blocks, these periods, and then these periods. I'm not sure what periods I'm going to be teaching AP next year, so I just put them kind of together. I don't know what day I'll have, what period. So here's the sticky notes. So my sticky note method, for this unit only, or this chapter only, they're going to do the sticky notes after reading. Usually I have it flipped, but some of my kids haven't picked up their books yet, so I wanted to not make them do notes yet. Just read, and they can catch up on reading if they didn't have their book right away. And then they're going to start reading for the next chapter as well. So my homework is reading and notes and ed puzzles. So it's more the flipped classroom model, and then I have time to do other things during the class period. And so I do this lab. So this is topics 1.1. So very, very first thing we learn really in Unit 1, and then 1.8 in our CED. And I just like to do it the first week of school. It's fun. It's kids. They look at sea critters with layers of blue plastic film to see how light penetrates into the ocean. All right, so now I'm on a full block schedule for us. It's block Monday, Tuesday blocks, and then Wednesday is like every period for like 42 minutes, and then we're back to block. So it's a modified block. So now we are going into still chapter 1, which is an introductory, and I'm going to do my reading quizzes. So I kind of baby step them in. So these reading quizzes, I'll give them like twice the amount of time as I normally would on the timer, and just to kind of get them used to, oh, these are reading quizzes. Mrs. Schurtz expects us to read at home. And I do time them so they do read at home. So they usually give them about 10 questions in 5 minutes. So about 30 seconds a question. And it is open book, open note, because I don't expect them to read the night before and memorize everything in one night. But I do expect them to read. So it's a timed quiz. So if they did not read, they will not do well, because if they just wing it and try and look up stuff, they're never going to do well. They might get half of them right, but that's an F. So they soon learn they have to read. And then I'm going to start moving into my chapter 2. Now my chapter 2 is science review. It is a review of photosynthesis and cellular respiration and the rock cycle and like the first and second laws of thermodynamics, potential energy, kinetic energy, things that they have had in other science classes. And it also includes plate tectonics that is in our Unit 4. For my students, they get the plate tectonics in their chemistry or science class. So they will have had it, so it is review. And so because in my book with God, half of chapter 2 is review and half is plate tectonics that's on the CED, I'm going to cover it all now with my unit 0. I did not do it that way last year, but I decided to do it that way this year. Okay, so we're going to do some plate tectonic notes. We're going to read in the textbook. I'm going to do reading quizzes for chapter 2. Again, open note but timed. I'm going to do some practice questions on Pear Deck or Kahoot. And then the kids are going to have a Unit 0 exam. This one is going to be fairly easy. It's a mini exam because it's only chapters 1 and 2, which are fairly easy chapters, and review for mostly of them. I have notes to myself, so the nice thing about Jamboard is that all I have to do every year is change my dates, and I can reuse it for the next year and then switch around things that change from year to year. But I make myself notes like make 2 versions of the exam, and I've already told myself I already did that. I had time to do it before school ended, and I also had time to make a retake. That's what happens when you teach 4 sections of AP, and the AP test is May 3rd, and the kids don't get out until the end of May. I did have time to work on these things. That doesn't, a lot of people don't have that luxury, so I do understand that. But these little notes are for me, like make sure you do this next year, etc. All right, so now I'm going to get into Unit 1. And so after their test here, it's going to be a mini test. It might take a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. The rest of my block, I'm going to start with trophic level drawings. Now in Unit 1, that is not until the very end of Unit 1. But in my book, Unit 1 is chapters 4 and 5, and it's pretty much the beginning of chapter 4, or the middle of chapter 4. So I'm going to start off with this. If you're following the order of the CED exactly, then your trophic levels and food chains and energy pyramids are going to come at the end of Unit 1. I like to go in the order of my textbook, kind of. Once I pick a chapter, so most of Unit 1 is found in chapters 4 and 5 of With God. So frankly, I'm just going to cover all of 4 and all of 5. It does cover a few things early, like it's going to cover ecosystem services early when that's normally a Unit 2 thing. And it's going to cover some things a little bit early, but it's a little bit clearer for kids to keep track of what we're doing. And so I'm going to cover Unit 1 first, but not necessarily in the order of the topics in Unit 1. So whatever those topics fall in that chapter is how I'm going to cover them. And I hope that makes sense. Please let me know if you have questions. All right, so here you can see I have sticky notes lecture before reading quizzes. And I have done this way. I used to do it the other way where I had them do reading assignments before note assignments. But my students said flipping that around was more helpful because when they heard me talk through the chapter first via sticky note videos, then they understood it better when they had to read it. And so that's why I'm going to do for the rest of the year, I'm going to do my sticky note lectures first. So basically the sticky note lectures are, I have my camera over my book, I have my book sticky noted where I point out what they need to know and what's important on each page and how to read this diagram and how to understand this chart and graph and why it's important. And they sticky note their books to match mine. I do not make them do their own sticky notes or their own outlines because they don't know what's really important and what needs to be emphasized in the book, but I do. So they match it to mine. And that's my method of sticky notes. I also have them start bringing their bottles for eco columns, so we start building the following week for eco columns. All right, so that is my Unit 0. And so I'm covering human footprint. Let me go back to the beginning. I'm covering human footprint. I'm doing a math diagnostic with them. And which is not there. I just realized that. So I just went and checked, and I have moved my math diagnostic to Unit 1 Jamboard. And I forgot I did that when I planned this about 3 weeks ago. So let's go ahead and look at that. So I'm going to go back to our folder, which is our CED resources. So let me just go back to the parent folder. So the parent folder that you have for me is our APSI resources. I'm going to click on folder 1, C. The internet's being a little slow. Nope, did not like that. There it is. I want to go to Unit 1. And in Unit 1, I have a spreadsheet of all the resources that you have, and you won't use them all. Like, you will not use everything on here in time. But on this spreadsheet, you have things that you can do. So topic 1.1, you can do these items that I have. Everything on this spreadsheet is in the Google Drive. There are some Direct Lab links, but not a lot of direct links. I just don't have time to put links for everything, but they are in the Google Drive in our folder for Unit 1. And you can see way down here at the end is when you're going to get to trophic levels, energy flow, food chains, and food webs. But for me, I cover that first in Unit 1. So you have all kinds of resources. You have everything that you need for this class. All right, you have pacing sample, but then down here, take a look at our planners. So until this next year, when we finally voted and changed to blocks as a staff, I've been on a traditional schedule for 20 years. And so you can see last year what I did with a traditional schedule of 55 minutes per day. But if you want to see now how I've switched it to block, this is my block schedule. It's very similar, except now when I do reading quizzes, instead, I used to do reading quizzes for like half the chapter at a time. Now with block, my reading quizzes are a little bit more content for some things, for some not. Okay, so here is my block schedule for Unit 1. Now you saw before that I started with trophic levels that previous Friday, and then here I'm going to go into that Monday, Tuesday block, and we're going to build eco columns here during this block period. And I gave myself a reminder that last week after the exam, the kids did trophic notes, and then I have the lecture. We do drawing, just drawing. There's no paper, there's nothing. I'm sorry, they have blank paper, but we just draw together food chains, food webs, energy pyramids on the board. And so I have it filmed if you wanted to see that, and the link is there. And then I have a note here that tells you what chapters there are. I put these notes, I try to help you all. Teachers are on my Jamboards a lot looking to see what I'm doing. So when they get to Unit 4, they want to see, oh, what is Mrs. Schertz doing for Unit 4? And so I put notes here for you guys too. Okay, I gave myself a reminder here that over homework, they were to do the Chapter 4 sticky notes. And then for homework, for these guys, so this block homework, I am assigning them AP Daily videos for 1.1, which is an introduction to ecosystems. And the reason why I'm assigning this one, even though it's covered in my book very well, is because I want them to know that AP Daily videos exist and that kids actually have access all the time. They're unlocked for kids to watch all the time, or you can assign them to kids to watch on AP Classroom. So I want them to watch these ones just to get them to understand that there's resources out there. And I actually purchase from Teacher Pay Teacher, I purchase reading guides that they fill in the blanks from a seller called She Cartoons. She as in like SHE cartoons. She has fill in the blank worksheets for all the AP Daily videos. All right, and then their homework also is to read and watch a few corresponding ed puzzles. Now, I made a note to you guys that my Chapter 4, Section 1 corresponds with 1.1 in the CED. So it's also a good reminder for myself that I'm covering everything in the CED. And then I'm going to do a reading quiz. For this reading quiz, I'll just make a note here. So I'm going to do maybe about 12 questions in 6 minutes. I usually do about 30 seconds per question, and that's a typical reading quiz for me, so 10 in 5 minutes, something like that. And we'll begin eco-column notes, and then there's a big long ed puzzle for homework. All right, so here's when I do my math diagnostic, which I go over in our APSI, and I give the kids, I think, about an hour to do the math diagnostic, and then I cut them off and they correct it and they self-diagnose their weaknesses. Things like metric conversion, scientific notation, working with percentages, percent change, and then they get focused math review sheets on the days that we do math. So reading and ed puzzles again for homework. So my kids work with content in several different ways. I want them to work in content by listening and sticky noting their book. I want them to work with content by going back and reading it again and doing reading quizzes with that content. Research shows that to really learn something, you have to interact with that content 7 times. Well, that's impossible, but at least they're going to get it twice. And for some things, when we do a lab, that's 3 times working with the content. For some things that are really hard, like trophy levels and food web drawings, we're going to draw those out in class together. So that's 5 or 4 ways working with the content, and they're also going to do an Alpella lab. So this repeating, and I talk to kids, it's called metacognition. Do you understand how you learn? And so I bring up research with kids all the time, and I say, this is what the research shows how you learn. If you're wondering why I'm repeating this and having you work with this content again, and some kids get really upset at that, they're like, we learned this, we already did this. And I'm like, look, here's what the research says. If you want to remember this for the AP test in May, you have to interact with the content in several different ways. Okay, so then, oh, and by the way, all my check marks here are just there as holders. Like, I haven't sent these to the copy center, so if you're wondering why there's check marks everywhere, they're ready for me to drag and put on the sticky note when I've actually programmed it. Okay, and then the next week I'm going to do reading quizzes. We're going to do the Alpella lab. We're going to mess with our eco columns a little bit, more reading quizzes, more reading, more biome charts. I do a biome chart with kids here, which is also in the drive for you. We do an aquatic biomes chart, etc. And then we're going to go into chapter 5 because unit 1 is mainly chapters 4 and 5. And then this is a weird block schedule because of back to school night, so I had to sort of put notes for myself up here that some of the blocks are switched. And there's a random check mark. And so then we're going to do eco columns again. I'm going to do a productivity lab setup here and the data here because it needs about a 48-hour incubation period. 72 is okay as well. We're going to practice doing climatographs, reading ed puzzles, diagram homework, reading quizzes you can see, and then Labor Day holiday, and then here's the big exam. I don't spend a whole 100 minutes, or I don't plan to spend a whole 100 minutes with an exam. I'll still do the normal about a 50-minute exam and then start with Unit 2 after the exam, which I haven't planned yet. So I have versions A and B done for my exam. I've made my FRQs. You have those in the drive too, so if you want to see what my exams look like or use my exam, you are welcome to do that. and you're welcome to use the FRQs. They really come from the College Board mostly. Anyway, math review. This is when I'm finally going to use that diagnostic data and start assigning kids the individual math papers that they need to do. So lots of information in here. Hopefully it helps you. Again, you have more than that here. There's all kinds of things. I don't use any of the HHMI stuff here, which is fabulous. I just don't have time. There's predator-prey simulations. They actually take quite a while, so you have to be willing to take that time. There's a lot of resources in here, again, that I don't use it all because I don't have time. So that is that. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll see you later.